You're listening to Cattywampus.
Well, we're gathered here today because I think a person who was very important to a lot of people on this podcast has passed away. Akira Toriyama died very suddenly. It was from a very private affair. Died relatively young. For people who don't know who that is, they created Dragon Ball, and in all its forms, what you understand as Dragon Ball, and in many ways, modern anime for boys, or as we know it, like shonen, is very much defined by this person. I think that is fair to say. Please, also, resident experts, Steve and Brian, please correct me if I misspeak, because you guys know a lot more about this than me.
That's correct, and I do think he is also, I would say that he is solely responsible for anime being popular in the West.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair assertion. His anime's popularity not just in English speaking nations, but especially worldwide. I mean, its hold on South America can't be understated. On days when new Dragon Ball episodes air, cartel activity actually goes down.
That's an amazing stat. It's interesting. And so just to, I thought we'd go, first of all, we'd go around the horn. I promise this will be a fun episode and not just us being really sad. Because Dragon Ball is fun. Like, I think above all, it's fun. I think we can all kind of agree about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I will start, since I have the least amount to kind of say about my history of Dragon Ball is probably almost certainly way shorter than your guys'. So I'll just start with, I have seen the first season of Dragon Ball Z, and I have watched something for this podcast. And so I have a passing familiarity with Dragon Ball. It's obviously seeped into the culture. And I, of course, have seen the maligned live action American adaptation of Dragon Ball. That is sort of my background into it, other than working at many comic book stores. And those, of course, as a comic book store in America, you have to have a good, healthy selection of manga. So I've definitely read, I've read, a little bit of Dragon Ball. I'm very familiar with it, but in passing. Familiar with the concept, not the lore, not the characters. So that's kind of where I'm at. Steve, where are you at with Dragon Ball? What's your history and your overall kind of like place you're coming from?
Dragon Ball was my comfort food when I was younger. It was before I even understood that there was a distinct difference between Japanese animation and anime and normal cartoons. I was watching Dragon Ball and series that spun off of Dragon Ball, or that had owed a lot to what they were to Dragon Ball. And that was, every day getting out of school, about 5 o'clock, Toonami starts airing and Dragon Ball's on. I'm watching newest episode of Dragon Ball Z every afternoon when I get out of school. And then Dragon Ball's something that I've carried with me into adulthood, that I've watched all of it. I've watched all of it numerous times at this point. I stay up to date with what's happening on it. I still enjoy when new content comes out, as sparse as that is. I haven't kept up on the manga like I know Brian has, but yeah, hearing that we've lost Toriyama, it was a gut punch. Like, it was one of those, it was like when Kevin Conroy passed not too long ago.
They were young. It's too young to die, certainly.
Right.
60s is too young to die.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
crazy.
And not only that, somebody who had such a huge formative impact on my life, and to this day, I look to as somebody who entertained and inspired me for years. It's a damn shame. And I know he's going to be sorely missed.
I think the Kevin Conroy comparison is a really good comparison for maybe American listeners who don't know Dragon Ball's influence. I think Kevin, but maybe you're into American geek pop culture, you're into comics and stuff. Like, I think the Kevin Conroy comparison is actually very apt, Steve. Like a very, from all accounts, a good guy, an inspiring guy, who also defined a very important part of pop culture for
Yes.
many decades. And it's always nice when somebody who does that seems to be a pretty chill dude.
Yep. It's always nice when the good ones are actually, the good ones.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I think that's very well said. Brian, same question. Talk to me about Dragon Ball. Talk to me about your experience with it and how you feel about it and where you are right now.
So I cannot remember where it started. I feel like I've literally always been obsessed with Dragon Ball. When I was really young, when I first started renting movies, there was a few Dragon Ball movies I would rent, but I basically, throughout my entire life, I've watched that series numerous times. I've seen all the movies, I've played all the games, I've read all the manga. I've always kept up with it. It's something I never, I guess, outgrew. I almost feel like it kind of grew with me. And as far as it impacting, I guess, my life, it was kind of how I made friends. In elementary school, I stayed for like the after school program, because my parents were working late. And so they would just put on Toonami. And so every single night after class or after school or whatever, we would just watch Toonami. And I know nobody on the podcast is going to know, but like that's how like Tony and I met. And that's how all of my other friends in like elementary school. And
for podcast listeners, if you've ever heard distant yelling on previous episodes, it might have been Tony.
Most likely.
It's a good chance.
Don't worry, he's a very nice man. He was just losing hard at an online game.
But basically, it was just a mutual thing that all of us, kids could just enjoy. And it's just how I made friends. And we would, collect the figures, collect the cards. We were always acting like, we were Goku and acting like we were going Super Saiyan and blah, blah, blah. It was so much fun. Compared to anything else out there, it just spoke to me for some reason. I have been keeping current with it. Speaking of friends, the last like 2, maybe 3 movies that came out in theaters, I still met up with Steve, and I still met up with a friend that I only get to see like once every couple of years, to go see these Dragon Ball movies in theaters, and it's just different. Like has been no other theater experience like that. The entire theater is just like screaming and clapping and laughing the entire movie. And it's just, I don't know, it has a very different fan base than most properties.
This is a franchise that it's very intimidating to an outsider because there is a lot of it and they don't have a sequential naming style. So it can definitely be, the barrier to entry can seem intimidating. I generally view myself as an outsider to the franchise. So one of the mission statements we discussed before we came into this episode was I was going to do some research, and it was suggested, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, you suggested in the text, or I'm not sure if Steve, you suggested it, but I should watch Dragon Ball Super Broly, the film.
Yeah, that was a Brian suggestion.
Yeah.
Steve, now's your time to say that was the wrong call if you want.
Which I also watched this morning. I've seen it like 6 times now. I love that movie.
I had never seen it before last night.
It's still going to be impenetrable in terms of a story and understanding what our characters' motivations are, where they've been, or how they got to where they are perspective. But it also is, in terms of what Toriyama's done, it's the most well-animated, it's the most inclusive, it's the most over-the-top.
It certainly feels more accessible than other elements of the franchise. I will say that. Having seen it, as someone who's not like super into this, I found it to be far more accessible.
I think it works really well as it gives you an introduction to a character that technically the character has existed, but they changed it enough
Yes.
and they explained it enough to where anyone can get it.
Well, I will say this. The movie acts like you don't know who Broly is, which
Right.
is very helpful if he's the title character from an outsider's perspective. like I think that's the I would say this, the core success of this movie is that I don't know who Broly is, and the movie doesn't assume you know who Broly is, which I think is very helpful. Like, that was number one, like, no notes, thank God, you're gonna explain to me who Broly is. And just to give everybody an overview, this is a movie. It's called Dragon Ball Super Broly. And again, Brian, please, or Steve, please step in if I am misspeaking, and do not be afraid to interrupt me and correct me on this. But I will try to lay out how I understand where this movie fits into everything.
I think it's better from your perspective.
Yeah,
since
Cool.
you don't
it will
know.
be.
So as I understand it, this is in many ways your traditional anime franchise in that there is a manga to base all this on, and there are several movements to this manga. In comic book parlance, we would say volumes or sequels or whatever, whereas I know in manga they use chapters that become volumes, and those are part of a certain movement. But it is essentially Arc 1, Dragon Ball, they are children. Arc 2, Dragon Ball Z, the kind of core dramatic apotheosis of the story. Arc 3, Dragon Ball Super, what is next? What is chapter 3 of this story? Is that correct?
It's basically the way to think of it is almost like power creep in comic books or anything else, where Dragon Ball is the original, is setting up our story, giving us our characters, introducing our world, our powers, our who all these characters are, and as everything continues, you get power creep until you reach the end of Dragon Ball. Honestly, I kind of can almost sum it up by comparing it to Spider-Man in the MCU. If chapter
Okay, let's hear it.
Chapter 1 in Dragon Ball is Peter getting bit by the spider and taking on muggers.
Cool.
Dragon Ball Z is Peter now having to take on actual supervillains, extremely dangerous, extremely powerful enemies, occasionally needing Avengers help. Chapter 3, Dragon Ball Super, is cosmic level. It is actually fighting enemies like Thanos and universe-ending consequences.
Ultimately, obviously, there's many characters, and it seems like main characters kind of come and go, but ultimately it is kind of Goku's story.
Yeah.
We always come back to Goku.
For better or worse, yes. There's
Yes,
moments where it looks like it's supposed to be somebody else's
Not
story.
to get ahead in this podcast about this movie, for better or worse, it always comes back to Goku.
Yep. In the end, it's always Goku.
Yep.
So, in essence, this movie goes back. This is a retelling of something that was already in the manga that did also get covered in the anime, but this is
No.
like a summation, or no?
No.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, this movie is technically completely original.
Okay, interesting.
It is not featured in the manga. It is not featured in the original anime. Up until this movie, Broly was not considered canon to the Dragon Ball timeline at all.
Okay, when did Broly originally appear? Was that the GT era?
No, so there were 3 Broly movies. It was Broly, the Legendary Super Saiyan, Broly, Bio Broly, and Steve, do you remember the names of
I
them?
thought it was Brawly and then Brawly Legendary Super Saiyan, and then the last one was Bio Brawly.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
But basically, they were just 3 movies, and the backstory for Broly then was that he was in a sleeping pod next to Vegeta and Goku,
Mm-hmm.
and Goku was crying all the time,
Yep.
and it drove Broly mad. And so now he is just a rage demon Super Saiyan.
Interesting.
Not great, kind of stupid.
No,
but-
and an interesting departure. This movie is clearly an interesting departure from that lore, since Goku was not part of that origin at all in this movie.
yeah. And fans, so Broly is a very popular character, was a very popular character.
Right.
Because of his design and because of how powerful he was. Origin was stupid. The movies aren't amazing, but it was, awesome fights, awesome power levels, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But nothing canon.
So those original movies weren't based on manga, and they weren't canon, and then they became canon later?
No,
Is
at
it-
no point,
None of them are canon.
None of those ever. Basically, for Dragon up until
So what is Broly canon in?
He wasn't until this movie.
right up until
Interesting.
Akira Toriyama came back to do his first movie in years, Battle of the Gods, back years ago. None of the movies up until that point had been considered technical canon. They were all just side stories.
There was 22 or 24 movies that are all just side stories, and they're all just, events. You can watch it without any prior knowledge, blah, blah, blah. And they had nothing to do with the manga, nothing to do with the anime. They were just their own standalone thing.
This is kind of like Thrawn and Ahsoka. We like the character, but it's never counted. Let's make it count.
Correct.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Again, I'm just trying to find straws to grasp at to go, hey, is it kind of like this? I understand there's differences, but hey, is it like this?
And then,
Hey, I'm a dumb American. Is it like this?
So to clarify, this movie, this Dragon Ball Super Broly happens. It is canon, but it's not in the manga. In the manga, when the story gets to this point, there is one single page that has a picture of, I think, Broly, Goku, and Vegeta fighting, and it just says, "Hey, if you want to check out this story that happens in between these two arcs, go watch the movie."
Got it.
And that's it. And
Okay.
and the Super anime never caught up to where the books are, so it's just, as of right now, the only canon thing with Broly is
This
movie, and technically the next movie.
This movie starts as a flashback to what is presumably kind of pre-Dragon Ball. My first note here is that Robert Kirkman owes somebody some money.
Invincible, yeah.
But those people he owes money to owe Kurt Swan and John Byrne money. Because this is fucking Superman. Yep. This is, I actually had to do a lot of research because, you never know. I was like, hey, I don't know a lot about this. Maybe I thought to myself, well, Dragon Ball started in 1984. Maybe this predates John Byrne's Superman Krypton mythos. I did some research, and it looks like what got codified about the Saiyan home planet actually didn't start till the mid-90s in the first DBC arc when his brother showed up. By the way, yeah, this is where I'm at now. I feel like Brian David Gilbert. I have become the DBC god of lore without any context. So
I kind of assumed, I was rewatching and I was like, David's totally gonna view him as Superman. Like, this whole thing is Superman.
Well, I actually, it made me go down a rabbit hole going, hey, who, because I always find this fascinating. Who inspired who? Yeah. Who's stealing from who? So it looks like a train of Kurt Swan and Robert Kepperberg defined Krypton in the 50s to the 70s. John Byrne reinvents it in 85. Even though Dragon Ball starts in 84, based on what I've seen, all the Saiyan lore doesn't start till the Saiyan lore that's relevant to this Krypton discussion doesn't start until 95. So this is clearly Toriyama loving John Byrne's Superman reimagining in the 80s, where Krypton is a bunch of genetic clones. They're in costumes that look a lot like the Saiyan costumes in this. And it's very influential. And obviously, just in general, we'll get to it with Goku's characterization. Clearly, Toriyama loves Superman. No shade here. I love Superman too. Like this is very much a love letter to old school Superman comics. And then what's crazy to me is now watching, I'm like, oh shit, Robert Kirkman, for his Superman mythos that he's steals from Dragon Ball. Like he's inspired from the thing that's inspired by the thing to retell the thing. So it's definitely this like cyclical crazy thing. But
and his Viltrumites and Invincible
Yeah.
are very much.
yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's what I'm referring to. Invincible.
I thought you said Superman, so I was.
Well, it's both. So Toriyama is lifting whole cloth from John Byrne's Superman.
Right.
And then Kirkman is lifting whole cloth Toriyama's interpretation of Superman to put back into a Superman pastiche that Robert Kirkman is doing. It's very incestuous, very cyclical. And not in a way that I'm angry at anyone. I just thought it was a fascinating thing. That was the first thing that caught me, was like, oh, I'm really watching the synthesis of different cultures taking an old myth and kind of modernizing it, and this is how this stuff kind of blends together. I just thought it was a fascinating thing. Like it also, similar to Superman comics of the 80s, it does feel like a classic retcon of "You're the last one, Kal-El / Kakarot," which is apparently Goku's real name.
Kakarot.
Kakarot, who's not Kal-El. He's legally distinct from Kal-El. Don't worry, everybody. And you're the last one. Cut to 12 chambers of identical super people. They might come back later in retcons.
Most of the reason why this movie exists is to solidify Broly being canon. And I think another purpose of these movies as a whole has always been to try to pull in maybe people that have never caught up with Dragon Ball. To give them something that they can, just go watch 90 minutes of it rather than 300 episodes.
It's a tough purpose for this movie to bear the weight of. Okay, so the basic premise is, if you know the Superman story, it's that. But instead of Brainiac or some invading force or climate change, it's a child called Frieza who's like, I rule you. I don't really know why they rule the Saiyan planet.
I was actually questioning that while I was watching it this morning. I was like,
yeah, I don't understand the Frieza thing at all.
So I think the problem, at least from my perspective, is that I have seen Frieza get his ass handed to him so many times that I don't view him as a threat. But
even in this movie, with my bare understanding, I don't view him. I don't understand Frieza.
But what they don't really go over is that technically Frieza is extremely powerful, and his father, King Cold, is extremely powerful.
He appears to be the weakest ass bitch in this entire movie, so I beg to differ.
It doesn't make sense, but
he seems to be less powerful than literally everyone in this movie, and there are infants in this movie.
If we backtrack in the Dragon Ball story all the way back to Dragon Ball Z, at one point Frieza was very terrifying.
Yeah,
at one point Frieza was.
Did he always have that voice?
Yes.
Because I disagree.
Yes, but he is powerful in terms of at least storyline.
Sure,
and
I'll take your word for it.
the Saiyans, but my issue with all of that is that the whole purpose of the Saiyans is that they apparently go out and conquer planets and then come back and reap the benefits and yada yada yada. And it's, at least from this movie, if you don't know anything else about Dragon Ball, it's weird to think that just Frieza and King Cold have an entire planet of Earth or world destroyers under their thumb. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
It took me a while to get on board, but I was like, okay, Goku's not part of this. That's Goku's dad, I think. I had to Google a lot of stuff. The thing is, I don't want to gloss over it because this prequel part of it, it's a third of the movie. Us on the Saiyan planet. So I was trying to make sense of it.
I've never watched the movie with the runtime visible.
But the first 25 minutes are this kind of retelling of basically the fall of Krypton, or the Saiyan planet, which I guess is called Vegeta, because Vegeta is both the dad, the king, and the planet, or the dad, the prince, and the planet, which, by the way,
it's correct. I mean, it is bad, but it's correct.
No, it is correct. But you know what? Superman doesn't live on planet Superman with his dad Superman.
A lot of the bad guys in Dragon Ball are just narcissistic dicks. That's just kind of the long and short of it. Is if you're a bad guy in Dragon Ball, you have a narcissism complex. I am King Vegeta. This is my son, who I also named Vegeta. And you know what? Fuck you. This whole planet is also Vegeta.
I mean, the whole thing's a little confusing, and I get part of it's like clearly because of the pods. I'm like, okay, this is like a eugenics culture.
Sort of.
Not to be Saiyan racist, but if your only difference is Banes, no Banes, or balding Widow's Peak, and your only clothing difference is pants, trunks, or briefs, it's really hard to tell everybody apart. I kind of think by the time it caught up to the... I'll say this. 25 minutes in, there's a very helpful just montage of, here's what Goku did in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. There's like a 3-minute montage just going, and he was the greatest hero. Here's all the feats he did. And I was like, this is helpful to me. Thank you. Our hero Goku, our villain turned hero Vegeta, live on a private island and spar with Bulma, who is Vegeta's partner. They have 2 kids, Trunks and a baby whose name I did not catch. And is Goku attached to anyone? Is he in a relationship?
Yeah. His I can't remember if his wife's actually in the movie, but he's
Not
married to Chi-Chi.
This movie makes it seem like he's a swinging bachelor.
He's
not smart enough to be a swinging bachelor, but
Well, we'll get to the Goku characterization. I think my biggest hindrance with Dragon Ball is perfectly exemplified in this scene, where they're kind of like they're sparring over the ocean, and you cut to this ocean resort, and Bulma's like, "Let me give you some exposition. We bought an island, and it's 1,000 miles away from any city, so the boys can really cut loose." And you cut to a massive explosive force in the ocean. I'm not there to explain tidal forces to Bulma, but their planet is fucked. And I don't know who the deaf god Anubis Jackal is, but again, I don't.
Beerus.
But I came away from this liking Goku.
Is this the first time that you've liked Goku?
Yes,
Okay.
I found him insufferable in the season I watched.
He is a drastically different character now than he was in that first season of Dragon Ball Z.
So here's the thing. I see the connections between the character. Here's what I like. I am okay with his attitude if he is competent. But if he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, I just find it insufferable. But like, I kind of liked his, manga shonen determined boy energy if he has the skills to back it up. And obviously the whole premise of this franchise is he doesn't have the skills, but he'll get them. I don't really have a lot of patience for it until he has them, and guess what, in this movie he has them. So I was like, I find this guy pretty charming. I really liked Goku in this.
He has been like that for a very long time at this point.
Yeah.
He I would say most of Super, if not even a little bit before Super, that's more or less how Goku is.
yeah, it's a little before Super, because I would say at the beginning of the Buu saga in Dragon Ball Z, like
And
when
then-
that whole thing starts, that's pretty much who he is by then.
And a lot of it comes from, I mean, he's always had confidence, but like he as goofy as he has gained a whole new level of confidence and strength through going through death and being resurrected 3 times. And I feel like once he hits that certain peak, he just kind of has fun with it. His level of seriousness has declined more and more and more as the series has gone on, and I feel like it's balanced it out enough to where Vegeta's the serious one, Goku's the fun one, and you get the two of them together, and the whole series just feels more balanced and works better. Just to clarify and fill in, because you don't have a lot of context or background.
No, zero. I have zero
Basically,
context.
Bulma and her family are kind of like the Bruce Wayne.
Oh, is that what that logo is? The copyright logo? That's not a copyright logo?
It's Capsule Corp.
And that's
so-
her company.
Right, it's her
Got
family's
it.
company.
Okay.
So the capsules that you see at the end of the movie, blah blah blah, we'll go over that. Basically her family has designed the technology to encapsulate cars, houses, weapons, anything into tiny pill-shaped little capsules.
This made it even into the terrible live-action film, if I recall.
So because of that, her family is insanely rich. So that's the whole
How
line
they can buy private islands and destroy the climate.
So yeah, the private island is owned by Capsule Corp or her family. As far as them destroying the planet, I mean, basically any time they fight anybody, that Earth should have been destroyed 1,000 times by now.
I think
technically Earth only died one time, and that was a miracle.
I think I'd have less of an issue with it if she didn't literally turn to camera and go, "We're 1,000 miles away from any city, so the boys can really cut loose." Cut to tidal forces being exploded. And I was like, don't tell me you're far enough away to affect people, because then you have to live by that in terms of what fucking happens in the ocean, which we will get to.
I was gonna say, you should have more questions about the fight later.
Oh, I do, because initially when she said it, I was like, why? And again, bro, I want to ask the questions if the movie doesn't. So why does the movie literally have a character turn to me, look into frame, and say, "Don't worry about it, it'll be fine"? And I'm like, I wasn't until you pointed it out.
They do it a lot, actually, throughout Dragon Ball Z. Before every major fight or anytime anything is going down, they make a point to get as far away from other people as possible.
Yeah, but when you turn the quote-unquote glacial continent into a molten pit, your planet's fucked.
Yep.
As the end of this movie illustrates.
Yeah. So anyway, we introduce Goku and Vegeta, their training. Beerus is there. He really isn't a part of this movie. He's just a quick comic relief. I forgot they really don't even talk about him. He's just
there's like two. There's a blue skin and a purple skin guy, I believe.
Yeah,
Beerus and Whis.
Got it.
Beerus is the god of destruction, and Whis is an angel.
They give a nod to who Beerus is in the movie. They're like, "Hey, he's a god of destruction. He's cool." It's like what Goku says. I don't think they ever I don't think they ever say who that guy is in the movie.
Yeah,
basically, Beerus' attendant.
Okay. He did do some cool dodging of Broly. Like he was distracting Broly. That was fun. I was like, "Who's this guy? This is fun."
He is an amazing character. Specifically in the manga, as it gets further in, and you kind of learn a little bit of backstory and a little bit of who he is. Okay. And the story kind of explains exactly how powerful he is.
I liked there's a moment where they're in one of the capsule planes or whatever, helicopters, heading to find the final Dragon Ball, and he makes some weird ass comment to Bulma, because Bulma's like, "I'm gonna get the final Dragon Ball. I'm gonna wish to be younger," which, okay. And this guy makes some snide comment, and Bulma has real "bitch, I don't know you" energy, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Bitch, we are not friends. We are colleagues. This was like her energy, and I really enjoyed that. I really appreciated that.
Unfortunately, I do think a lot of the best humor in this movie does require more knowledge of all the characters.
I would disagree, because there's an amazing bit of humor in this movie that I found to be A+ no notes.
I think a lot of it still works, but I think having a intimate knowledge of the character helps too. Specifically, like Bulma leaving. Is it Marin?
Are you talking about
Bulma and Vegeta's daughter?
Oh no, that's Bola.
Bola. Yeah. Because Trunks is their son from the future, but he's young in this, so that must mean he's the current day son.
Yeah, he's the He's the regular, not future,
current
not
timeline version.
Yeah, there
of
you
him.
go.
Yeah. But Bulma leaving their daughter with the God of Destruction, to me, was fucking hilarious. Because he had, just before this movie, he was like the main villain of the last movie.
Oh, okay.
And he essentially, because you have no context, Beerus is the God of Destruction. He can basically destroy any planet just by looking at it. And the way he decides on whether or not he will destroy that planet is if their food is good or bad. And so in the previous movie, he was going to destroy Earth if they didn't have tasty food.
Interesting.
And now he's just...
Why was he not part of the final fight? Can he not fight? Is it
because he just doesn't feel like it. It's beneath him.
Yeah.
Cool. So he'll just die when the planet's destroyed?
No, he'd be fine.
He'd have been fine.
Yeah.
Oh, he'll just be in like the vacuum of space if the planet's destroyed.
And he'd just be cool.
I think that's like the biggest like question mark I have across like the lore of like it just feels like this planet could be destroyed any minute and everyone's being really chill about it.
So
but they're on it, which seems very like weird.
I think another part of that is that it's happened already.
It's already they've done this so many times.
Earth's already been destroyed.
Earth has already been destroyed. Multiple planets have already been destroyed. They've traveled multiverses together. They have met. They've been to the end of time, and they've met the master of. Is it the master of time? I can't remember what the fish is.
Oh, I don't remember what his exact title was.
But essentially,
this fish is not in this movie, right?
No.
Okay.
But they've essentially been to the end of the earth and met the master of it all, and he has helped them reverse things. So, like, for the most part, there's no stakes left.
We will get into some criticisms later, but that is definitely overarching in the movie about stakes. And the clarity of them.
It's honestly one of the things I still find charming about Dragon Ball is the fact that they've reached this pinnacle or this apex of like doom and gloom and how everything could just end in an instant to the point that there really are no stakes for Dragon Ball anymore. We've literally met Zenny. We've met like literally the god of gods that can literally blink and wipe all of existence out instantly. And he's just cool. He just likes chilling with Goku.
And I'll tell you what, Steve, I agree with you, because for a certain part of this movie, I think when this movie really works, it's operating on that level. I think the next thing is we cut to Frieza in the present day after we've kind of reestablished Goku and Vegeta, and I do have some Frieza. I know who Frieza is, but I have some Frieza questions. So I got from just context, at some point Goku and his friends killed this guy and Goku brought him back. Why does Frieza... Okay, there's a whole running through line where Frieza wants this frog man to make the wish, and then later a different character puts the frog man with a gun up to the dragon to make a wish. Is there a reason they can't make the wish?
So that whole thing was just a bit with... So Bulma was saying that if she had the Dragon Balls, she would wish to be younger. And then it cut to Frieza saying if he had the Dragon Balls...
No, get that? Great joke. Good joke, by the way. Yeah. No notes. Fun joke.
Yeah. And then Frieza is saying basically like, I just want to be taller.
5 centimeters taller.
Because if it's any more, they'll know.
Loved it. No notes. Fun. I was laughing on my couch, being like, that's really funny. That's good. That's good stuff.
For the past...
But why does he... But in that, he says the frog must go make the wish. And then later, Chile, the character who we haven't established yet, is going to put that frog at gunpoint. By the way, I'm assuming he's a frog. I don't actually know what he is. To make him make the wish to the dragon. Is there what is the thought process behind the frog has to make the wish? So
in order to understand this, you have to go back to Dragon Ball Z to understand why.
Right. I guess I'm just sort of general question. What's the lore behind asking
the lore behind that is that the reason there's even Dragon Balls in the Dragon Ball story is a character named Kami from another race, from another planet, came to Earth. And on his home planet, his people are capable of making the Dragon Balls.
Okay, cool.
So he made the Dragon Balls for Earth that... You know, whatever, that they were our plot point, they were our MacGuffin for eons. Right. During Dragon Ball Z, the Dragon Balls for Earth are lost. Right. Because Kami is dead. So we have to go to his home planet to get the other Dragon Balls.
Cool.
Those Dragon Balls obviously don't work in English. They would work in whatever that planet's language is.
Okay.
And Frieza only knows about those Dragon Balls existing. So his assumption is he needs a Namekian our other race of people to
Oh,
make
so
the
this
wish.
is so Frieza. In the lore of this film, Frieza's never actually encountered Dragon Balls before together.
He's encountered them, but he's never
he's-
actually used them.
he doesn't actually know how it works. He just assumes he has to make this guy do it.
Right.
Okay, that makes more sense for the joke at the end, where he's like, "You just ask the fucking dragon," and Chile's like, "Oh, okay, okay,
Yep.
that makes more sense." Okay, the way it was played, I was like, "This feels like a lore thing I don't understand," so I just wrote it as a note to be like, "Hey,
It's a really impenetrable story beat that doesn't make any sense without a lot of prior knowledge.
Also, I like Frieza's my kind of villain because, like all great villains, he has to be cucked by his subordinates. Because I like the other subordinate who's like, "You fucking suck, and that's why you want it." And he's like, "She's right," and I'm like, "Interesting, Frieza." I enjoyed Frieza in this, by the way. I thought he was a
Good
Yeah, go
news.
ahead.
If you like Frieza, he's in a lot of Dragon Ball.
I mean, I like him in the doses that he's in this movie. I don't know if I want like a lot more.
Yeah, he is where the manga is sitting currently, he is being set up as the next big bad.
I
again.
actually did find it charming that the juxtaposition of like Frieza's like, "I want to be 5 centimeters taller," and Bulma's like, "I want to be 5 years younger," and it's like,
Yeah.
really, it's just about the impossible beauty standards of this world. So maybe they should get the Dragon Balls and just wish those away. Sadly, that is not the conflict of the movie. Although I was, and we're gonna kind of tool around to what I really liked about this movie. I was quite charmed by the fact that the resolution to this movie is ultimately kind of undoing part of the world, and or part of the world of the movie, and I really liked that. And I have a random divergence before we return, because ultimately we're kind of at the point where we're going to talk about 15 minutes of plot, and then the rest of this movie's an action movie. So before we do that, I actually do have a weird Frieza question. And it's more of a Frieza comment, and you can comment on this. Just based on this movie, Frieza's tail, it's a very fun animation sheet, because whenever the character model is facing frame, the tail is twice as thick as it is when he's turned, as if to imply the tail goes into his mid-thigh. And then he turns around and the tail shrinks. And this led me to I just want to let everyone know, because this is how dedicated I am to this podcast, I've completely fucked my Google search algorithm by typing in the words Frieza's tail.
I'm sure you saw a lot of strange things.
I saw so much. Guys,
There's a reason why there's a Rule 34.
Guys, I can't unsee what I saw.
Yeah,
and I'm no closer to the answer about Frieza's tail other than the animator likes it when it's thicker when he's facing. Then when he turns, they must admit it's not that thick. Because it has to
I've
go
honestly,
up.
I've never paid
I've
enough
never
attention.
paid it. I'll take your word for it. I don't really want to Google.
Yeah, I don't want that in my
Frieza
search
tail.
history.
My Google search is fucked. I will I will show you a base. I will send you all the image in Discord. I will brave the Google. It's already fucked. Doesn't matter.
Anyone that's in a part of our Discord is about to be so confused.
I know it's pretty good.
I think I can kind of picture what he's talking about in my head, though.
I googled Frieza's tail. I'm looking.
Don't do it, because that gives you a lot of things about what the tail can and can't do, and that's not the purview of this podcast.
Yet.
It's a
So anyway, Broly, he's sent to another world. Again, a lot of Superman stuff. Broly is Doomsday, like he's very obviously Doomsday.
Yeah.
And here's where I kind of want to get into like the meat of this movie in terms of like as a movie. This is so close to a movie I would really like. I find the whole thing with Chile, the girl who was a thief, joined the Frieza Corps, the Green Lantern Corps, I guess, and was like, I'm doing this to escape capture, meets up with Broly, realizes Broly's dad is a fucking tool, and goes, hey, Broly, you could be better. Don't worry about what your fucking idiot dad is doing. He is manipulated by Frieza, sent to fight Goku and Vegeta. And I think the arc of Chile and Broly is kind of if the movie's about anything, it feels like it's supposed to be about that.
Yeah, I mean that is the primary meat of the story is about Broly and about him and her meeting. But yeah, the whole plot really falls off the second we get to the ice location. They don't really specify where. They just say the ice continent.
The glacial continent of this planet is what they call it.
Well, it was.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the planet's fucking doomed.
Yeah, the story just dies the second they get there.
Well, this is the Dragon Ball thing, which is like, okay, we gotta do like a 30-minute fight, and it's like, great. Will it show me character for action? And it's like, nah. Story's over. Fight started. And you're like, cool. I at the core of this movie, you have a very classic fantasy story where you have a girl who is on the run, encounters this very powerful beast, discovers the beast is it's Beauty and the Beast. Discovers the beast is innocent, and there are other factors that make him a villain. And I actually was, on paper, when you look at the story, I actually think there's a very moving story to be told here, where this person who has no power collects the obviously it's like there's 6 Dragon Balls and 1 in the same location. But to be fair, it still takes her 45 fucking minutes of screen time, and also given the Piccolo scene, which is a montage, means it took her 18 hours, I guess, to collect the Dragon Balls and wish Broly away to safety. To me, who has like broken brain by like learning storytelling, that's a good story. Like, I actually was really like ready to be engaged by that. That she's like, you don't understand. He's just a kid. He doesn't know anything different. His dad sucks. Frieza sucks. You guys suck. I wish him to safety. And Goku learns a lesson from that. And then the ending happens where he goes, hey, like, you're okay. Like, I actually think there's like the beats of a story there. I think the biggest issue with this movie is that this movie understands that we're a Dragon Ball movie. So, Goku and Vegeta are main characters, but they've clearly arced out. Their stories have clearly ended before this movie. And also there's a 25-minute prologue, and also there's a 30-minute final fight, which basically means that there's 30 minutes in the middle to give us character development, and half of it is devoted to checking in on Goku and Vegeta. Again, characters who have finished their stories, it seems like. So, like, ultimately, this movie should basically be about Chile. So Chile's the POV character, Broly's the pivotal character, and the story kind of reacts around that. But because it's Dragon Ball and it has to be like Goku and Vegeta ultimately, the 2 least interesting characters who have already done everything they can do are like, hey, and even the attitude of them is no big deal, whatever, we're here. I'm like, well, if you don't care, why should I? Like, what's the story here? I think that's like the big thing in this movie that actually keeps me from like really embracing it. But I do want to clarify, like, I was actually pretty invested in like the Broly stuff with Chile. I was like, this is like a story. This is like some drama here. Like, what's gonna happen? This poor kid, he was fucking like totally manipulated by his dad. Like I actually was like in. Like, this is the first time I've been in on a Dragon Ball story where I was like, I'm emotionally invested in what happens to these people. Like I said, I think the accoutrements of the Dragon Ball franchise kind of keep me a little bit at bay, but I did kind of want to focus on like the Broly Chile stuff, because I actually thought like this is really working for me. Like I was ready. I was ready to invest in that. Like that kind of moved me, and I thought I'd kind of get you guys' thoughts on that whole part of the story.
On that, I would be curious to see. I don't know if you will, but the next movie doesn't have Goku and Vegeta. It does for like an ending joke, basically. But after this movie, I was kind of texting you about it. Goku and Vegeta go off to space, join a space force, fight space wizards, do all kinds of other shit. They don't interact with Earth at all. So then the next movie basically just explores like another threat, but without the help of Goku and Vegeta.
It helps, but I will say it doesn't do... Dragon Ball Superhero doesn't do anything to reinvigorate that formula.
No.
This is speaking as somebody that enjoyed Dragon Ball Superhero for what it was, but I enjoyed it because I went into it expecting heavy nostalgia bait, and that's literally that entire film is heavy nostalgia bait.
Yeah, and Superhero does feel less. It feels more of a comedy than this did.
Yes. Which is fine. I feel like Dragon Ball frequently works better when
Yeah.
it leans into its comedy. That's
Yeah,
why,
and
as much as I like Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball still holds a special place in my heart as being my favorite part of the story.
Yeah, and I have been watching. I started basically as soon as the Cell Games ends. So I've been rewatching Z, and I kind of forgot because the last few times I've rewatched it, it's always been Kai. Seeing all the filler again, there's a lot more comedy in Z than I remembered.
Oh, there's so much good comedy in Z.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that Kai cuts that out is actually... it's really disappointing.
Having recently gone back through the entire franchise in manga form, it is a very, very different thing. The anime is kind of the identity of Dragon Ball. Like, the manga has started it. It's the framework. But the thing that everyone thinks of when they think of Dragon Ball is absolutely anime. Like, the manga doesn't have a lot of the comedy. It doesn't have a lot of the side stories and the character building. The manga is almost entirely point A, point B, big bad guy, fight big bad guy, get strong, do it again.
I'll tell you about the comedy that really worked for me. So like basically like they start. So Broly and his dad and Frieza and this space cop and these people arrive on Earth. And a fight starts, and that's the rest of the fucking movie. You know, there's a lot of stages to the fight. I actually wrote down my favorite part of this movie was the fact that Piccolo, I guess. Okay, real question: is Piccolo supposed to be on the same planet as them in this movie? Okay, so he is literally watching the continental ice shelf be turned into a molten core, and he seems fine. The planet's not affected, I guess.
He's on like the other side of the planet, basically.
That's fine. That's what the Dragon Balls are for. You wish it back to the way it was.
She didn't, though.
They will eventually. A lot of people are going to die in the meantime.
Oh yeah,
but
Earth's dead.
Eventually.
Well, that was the other part of the movie that I thought was hilarious. Was Frieza was like, "I will destroy this planet." I was like, "What do you mean, will? You just did. Like, you brought a guy here who turned the ice drift into a molten core. You won, bro. You're done. You won. The planet's dead." But anyway, I really enjoyed the Piccolo stuff where I guess Goku, and this is like, again, like from a hilarious perspective, halfway through this movie, or not even halfway, 2/3 into this movie, Goku's like, "By the way, I have telepathy." And you're like, okay. And then he teleports to him. Like, seems like teleportation was a thing you could have used before this moment. But anyway, I thought the comedy of he takes Vegeta to the plateau, and then Goku correctly is like, "We should fuse. You need to teach Vegeta how to fuse, Piccolo." And I really enjoyed the energy of this sequence where Piccolo was like, "I don't give a shit, but sure, I guess I'll teach you fucking idiots." And I was like, this is great. And then they fuck it up, and you just keep cutting back to Broly murdering Frieza. And it's like, you have to wait 30 minutes. Cut to Frieza screaming in agony.
For like an hour and a half.
Yes. And then they fuck it up again. So you have to wait another 30 minutes. Cut to Frieza being and it was the first time in the movie where the comedy like landed, where it was like, oh, this is like made like a comedy, or it's cut like comedically. I actually kind of delighted in that. And then the cherry on top of them going, well, we can't go back yet. We need a cool name. Cut to Frieza being murdered again. And they were like, Gogeta? Gogeta? And everyone looks at each other like, Gogeta? And Piccolo's like, I don't give a shit, leave. Piccolo was like, fucking leave.
In the theater?
I hate you all. I loved all of that.
In the theater, that entire like 10-minute sequence was just nonstop laughter.
It was great. That was great. I had no notes. I mean, I have some questions about like how Chile before that sequence is like you could see Chile's wheels turning, going, if only I could wish. Oh shit. So I guess it took her 16 hours to get the Dragon Balls out of the ship she was next to, but whatever. And she did it, and she made the wish. And I think I mentioned before, I really like Goku after this movie. And I gotta tell you, I really love the ending. I think I'm so over. And to give our audience a sense, at the time of recording, Zack Snyder just did the Joe Rogan podcast last week, and it caused a big internet stir because he was like, Batman should murder, which is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. And I don't
Hadn't heard about that. That sounds about what I expect from Zack Snyder.
Yeah, I don't want to relitigate why Batman shouldn't kill people. I don't want to have to explain to fucking psychopaths why someone shouldn't murder someone. But okay, I like whatever. I really like that Goku went to the planet and gave them a house. And was like, here's a house for you guys, and here's food, and oh, by the way, here's some medicine in case, whenever you're injured, if you're training, like, hey, this will bring you back up to like power level, and like, hey man, and they're all like, is this a trap? And he's like, no, why would I do that? I'm like a nice guy. And like Goku had real like it was goofy, but it was like Superman energy of like Superman, like the Superman I recognize, of like, hey, like everything's gonna be okay, guys, like it's not gonna work out, it's gonna be fine, don't even worry about it. Like it was Grant Morrison Ultra Superman energy, where Goku's just not worried. He's just like, it's gonna be fine, like everything's gonna be cool. And he does that little like playful like punch to the like fake, like the kind of fake punch to the shoulder. I'm like, who else am I gonna train against, right? Anyway, see you guys later. And they're like, I also love that they don't even know who this fucking guy is because they were all obsessed with Vegeta. And they're like, what's your name? And he's like, oh, Goku, but you can call me Karakat or whatever. I no notes loved it. I absolutely like. I came away from this movie, and this is like my biggest problem with this movie. It was, I get it. I finally get the Goku thing. I've never understood people's love for Goku. I fucking love this guy. Like, no, like, joke. I finally get it. It's Determined Boy Superman, and I'm all about it. Loved it. And loved that he had no interest in murdering Frieza at the end, had no interest in murdering anyone. Was just like, fighting's fun, and that was fun. That was a fun training. Oh, he lost and he got teleported away? I should go check on him, make sure he's okay. Loved it. Loved the energy there. No notes.
That has basically been Goku since he died to Frieza.
And it feels like the modern incarnation of this character, as I have seen him through memes and other stuff, and now I finally get it.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh yes, I see what you all are saying.
Wait, Steve, maybe I'm misremembering. He did die on Namek with the whole Frieza thing, right?
No, he did not.
No.
Didn't he
made
kill
it out.
Frieza?
No.
Or, that's a question. Who killed Frieza?
Trunks.
Goku did.
Okay.
Well, no.
Oh, wait, that was two answers.
Well,
Goku and Frieza
Interesting.
basically fight to the death on Namek while it's being destroyed. And then Frieza...
I guess you're right. I guess technically he didn't die.
Frieza gets rebuilt with a cybernetic body.
Oh,
And Goku...
I'm confused. This movie made it sound like somebody... So this movie seemed to imply Goku brought Frieza back with a wish.
He did.
He did.
Oh, okay.
For a tournament that they fought in Dragon Ball Super, the series. He brings back Frieza and Android 17 because he needs...
I don't know who that is, and that's not an invitation for you to tell me.
But
we ain't got time for that.
But anyway... Yeah, I think we've pretty much run out of things.
I think we have exhausted the wellspring that is Dragon Ball Super Broly.
I am not opposed to this becoming a Dragon Ball podcast. But I would need someone else to take the reins and tell me what to watch. I will watch it and come back with thoughts, but I am open to this becoming a Dragon Ball podcast where we guide me through this lore.
Is this our next saga? Is this our next saga? We've done Nick Cage. We did Ernest. Clearly, we have to do Dragon Ball. That's how the order works, right?
Unfortunately, I don't think there's movies that cover enough to where you could watch it without sitting down and watching.
I mean, we could become a recap podcast where we go episode by episode.
I mean, I did just watch like 30 episodes over the past 2 days.
I mean, we could do it.
I mean, I could go back and start watching them again, man.
You start with, I assume Dragon Ball episode 1 would be the first episode. I
did just watch that on VHS the other day.
I've been
we
wanting
can
to
do
go
it.
back and do a rewatch of Dragon Ball anyway.
Guys, this is not just. I'm not just saying this for the record. I would be willing to do that. I would be more than willing. I think if you're ever gonna get me to watch all of Dragon Ball and get it, this would be the way to do it. So if you guys want to take the reins and guide me.
Dragon Wampus podcast.
I would be
I don't
very
think
curious to see at the end of all of that your take on whether or not Dragon Ball should continue or be a new creative team.
I am game. I'm 100% willing to do that after this movie. This movie, Brian, you won. This movie has
I think I told you this literally like 2 or 3 years ago when I saw the movie.
But you won in the sense that if you want to keep this going, you're going to have to do the work. It's not going to be me. I will watch whatever you tell me to watch, like week by week, and we will definitely record.
We
and
would
talk
have to
about
do it in episode blocks. We couldn't just do it episode by episode. It would
I
take one. It
leave
would
that.
take too long.
I leave that to you guys.
What
Again, that's the kind of work I will not
Here,
do.
do you guys want to go ahead and
But
stop?
if you guys
Yeah,
want
we
to
need
do
to-
the work,
Let's go ahead and
I don't know. I
stop
think
the
this should be. I
podcast.
think this should be part of the episode. The
want
promise that
to.
we might do this.
What I would strongly recommend, if this is the route you want to go,
I said I'm willing to.
Steve,
I'm recommending a 24-hour cooling off period.
It's like a medical procedure. We gotta make sure you really want to do this. Do you have a note from your doctor that you want to watch Dragon Ball?
You've been listening to Cattywampus. You can follow us on Instagram at CattyWampusPod. Email us at cattywampuspodcast@gmail.com. Music by Tilly.